This is episode 002 of the Bread Over Stones podcast. 5 things you can start investing in your family today. Part 2 of 5, your hands.
Welcome to the Bread Over Stones podcast, the show that gives grace-driven solutions to heal, unite, and inspire families. Your host is Matthew Morgan, a licensed professional clinical counselor in Ohio, a pastor, and my husband of over 20 years.
And my dad. He loves bringing families together and helping them relate better with one another.
At Bread Over Stones, you'll add to your toolbox as a parent and a spouse in order to improve the way you communicate, discipline, and ultimately show your love for your family.
So welcome to the show.
Hello and welcome to episode 002 of the Bread Over Stones podcast. My name is Matthew Morgan. I'll be your host today. And today we are kicking off the second part of a 5-part series on things that you can invest in your family today. Should add that they are things that don't cost any money generally. So because we need that. So for those of you joining me by video, hello, welcome. It's good to see you. Not really because I don't see you, but whatever. And those of you who are just on audio, don't worry, you're not missing a whole lot. So today, to jump in, we want to talk a little bit about hands. And now this is where it's going to be a little different for those of you on video, because one of my cool little party tricks that I learned when I was about 2 or 3 days old is that I have a really snazzy birthmark on my left hand. It's a little port wine birthmark. I was really self-conscious about it in school, and in retrospect, it really isn't that much. It's just a little different colored skin. It's actually kind of fun because, if somebody's drawing blood and they see it, or, they're working around, it's the first time they've ever noticed it, they kind of jump back and, are worried that I got burnt or something, which, as I understand the story from when I was younger and my mom first noticed it, she was quite concerned that I had burnt myself, which is pretty impressive for a 2-day-old. But then again, I'm a firstborn child, so I don't fault anybody for worrying when we get to that stage. So, but it's interesting when you study hands, and as a therapist, it's fascinating to watch kids draw, and I'm sure parents have noticed this as well. But when kids are drawing, they draw people. And usually they have these tiny little pinheads and these gigantor hands. And you're like, okay, what is going on with that? But then if you ever do this, and I highly encourage this, get down to the perspective of a child and look up at somebody. And yeah, when somebody reaches out for you, and those of you on video, right? The hands are huge, especially in comparison to the head. And that's what we're always doing. We're reaching out and we're grabbing our kids and we're picking them up and we're lifting them and we're pushing them and we're saying, don't do that, Johnny. Stop hitting your brother. Get the cat out of the shower. All the different things that we never thought we would say as parents. The big one in our family is always get your hand out of your pants because he's a boy and boys do that. So the hands are very interesting. So kids see it one way. And they always do. And it's interesting because let's flip-flop that and look at it from your perspective. And I would venture to say that we probably see our hands more than any other part of our body. We see our face in the mirror when we're trying to, do our makeup or shave off the beard, or whatever it is, brush the teeth in the morning. I remember recently I was at a training, and I was tired, and so I went and used the restroom and flipped my glasses up to the top of my head, just give the eyes a break because they'd been working hard. Went to the bathroom, washed my hands because dang it, we should always wash our hands, right? So I'm washing my hands afterwards and splashed a little water on my face. I looked up, and I will swear that was my dad looking right back at me with the glasses on his head. And everything else. I don't see my face that often, and it's changing. It seems to be getting older for some reason. But my hands, I see every single day. I see that birthmark. I see where my wedding ring is. I know where my lines are. I can usually figure out when it's about time to cut my nails. they're the things that I do the most with, and probably you too. So that's our perspective on life. And hands have this great thing. They can either heal or they can harm. That's really all there is to it. And so we want to look today at some ways that we can heal with our hands. I'm a big fan of John Gottman's research. I'm working my way through a lot of his material now, and he's got an adage in there. Adage isn't the right word, but I'm losing the right one right now. So, but it's this idea that when you're working with a couple, and when we're working as a couple, we want there to be 5 positive interactions for every negative interaction, or thing that draws from it. If you think about it this term, how good would your bank account be if you put 5 deposits in for every withdrawal, right? Not reverse, not like the federal government's doing, but 5 deposits for every withdrawal. That would be healthy, and our relationships need to be that way. We need to be putting those deposits in before we bring out of them. And so what we want to do is talk real quick just today about some different ways, and again, very practical ways, very non-judgmental. We're all about bread over stones. How do we hand something that is good to somebody without trying to injure them? And there's cases where it's really easy, and then there's cases where it can be very challenging. And so we're going to work through some of those. So again, getting to know our hands a little bit better. I always think when I'm thinking of hands and I'm looking at them, there's a scene, one of my all-time favorite Christmas movies is The Muppet Christmas Carol. I love the Christmas Carol in general. I'm a feel-good person. I love that idea. I love the transformed life. And of course, Charles Dickens just really encompasses that, and you can't go wrong with the Muppets. The Muppets will make you laugh, especially that generation of Muppets. And there's a scene in there where Gonzo is trying to argue about why he should be the narrator. And he says something like, well, because I know the story of A Christmas Carol like the back of my hand. And he's sitting with Rizzo, and Rizzo says, yeah, prove it. And Gonzo, the first thing he does is puts his hand out and he says, all right, there's a little mole on my thumb and a scar on my wrist from when I fell off my bike. And Rizzo says, no, don't tell us your hand, tell us the story. So our story today is going to be using the hands and being able to do that. And I apologize to Frank Oz and company for the voices on the Muppets. It's just there. So 5 ways to bring in healing hands to our relationship. So the first part is that hands are designed to build. And we can use them to build things all the time, and they're great for that. I always teased my cats when we had them that, they're trying to do something. I'm like, I've got opposable thumbs and you don't. And so, because, why not taunt a cat? They still love me because I still fed them. So what we did, what are some things you can do with your hands? Well, we build blocks. We can make art. We can make puzzles. Almost said it, not the brand name. Modeling clay. We can do all those kind of things. And the hands are phenomenal for that. And there really is something about getting in there with your hands and working with something. There have been studies done on art therapy. And what it shows is that after we've done art, the cortisol, the stress chemical in our brain, actually diminishes for a long period of time after we have done some sort of artistic endeavor. Now, for me personally, that's not going to be physical art, because physical art, I'm really bad, and the stress levels go way up. So we want to instead kind of, again, looking at what can we build. And so for those of you who are, couples, one of the things that I loved with my wife is just to sit down and do something together, build a jigsaw puzzle, build whatever, do some artwork, get down, play cards with your hands. You're building a relationship that way. So my wife is very much the jigsaw puzzle person, and I will fully admit I do not like them. I preached a sermon one time on jigsaw puzzles versus Legos. And typically men are Legos. We like to take this random chaos and build from it. Whereas the feminine personality is more jigsaw puzzle. And again, we can flip-flop those. I'm not sold on the gender roles necessarily. I just notice the trends doing what I do. But the jigsaw puzzle, you're taking something that was whole and trying to put it back together again. And if I were just to look at jigsaw puzzles, I wouldn't want to do it. But to do something with my wife and spend that time with her, spend that quality time, absolutely. Same with the kids. Get down there and start to play. I will credit my wife in the early stage of our child growing up. She was, again, not a Lego person, and my son loved it. Our son loved it. And so he would get down and just like to put stuff together. And she'd look at these pieces and just going, I don't know what to do with all of those. But that didn't matter. He just was happy to have her there and spending that time. So that's one interaction we can do with our hands, is just to build something with somebody else. The next one is to connect with them. And we do this all the time, and we have to be careful with this. We don't want unwanted contact. That gets very creepy, and that gets into the realm of restraining orders very quickly. We don't want to do that. So please don't blame me, okay? If you go up and hug random strangers and you end up, in legal trouble. So make sure this is appropriate. So the way we connect, we touch, we can reach out and touch somebody on the shoulder if it's appropriate. Appropriate, right? We shake hands when we come in to meet. One of the first things we do is we connect. And I know not everybody's into it. Not everybody's into the hand-holding thing, especially in this realm of germs. Carry some hand sanitizer or lotion or whatever you need to do. But that gives that extra connection that's there. And it doesn't always have to... I'm going to jump back on this one. I had an interview with somebody, and she had a cold and did not want to shake my hand, and I respected that, absolutely. I love sharing, but not necessarily germs. But she did the folded hands and gave me a quick namaste. And even that from a distance, even though that wasn't a physical connection, there was still a connection there, and I appreciated her for that. That kind of stuck with me. So again, that can be another point of connection with the hands that doesn't necessarily involve direct touch. Shoulder touches, hugs. I talked about this in a previous episode. For an intimate partner, somebody who this is appropriate for, or for a child, that hug can be very therapeutic. And I highly recommend, again, Gottman level stuff here, 20-second hug. Get in there. Now, 10 is good. 20 is really awesome. And we do this in our house. And if I come home and I hug my wife, I'll hug her. In the first 10 seconds, she's still a little bit stressed. And then after a little bit, it starts to just diminish and go down. So we can build with our hands. We can connect with our hands. A third thing our hands do, for anybody who has been to an airport, we're going to go ahead and shut the phone off. My bad. The proof that this is live and not edited. I'm just going to leave that in there. So anyway, the third way is to guide. Those of you who've been into an airport, you know what the guides are, right? They're sitting there with the colored batons, and they're guiding these big airplanes in. If you've gone through traffic, especially OSU game day down at the shoe, there's police everywhere, and they've got the hands up if you're stopping. They've got the hands moving if you're going. Always the hands. And we can do this with our families. Not everything has to be verbal. And I've been in some families that are very loud and very chaotic. Sometimes, to bring the noise down, hands are very effective for that. I worked with a young man who would tend to get very animated, and the more animated he got, the louder he got. And he kept building up and building up and building up and getting more excited. And I would just give him the verbal cue, just hands up. I didn't have to tell him to be quiet or hold it down. Just a real quick hand lowering was enough that was able to help. So being able to do that, being able to use your hands to talk to people, being able to use that to steer. Sometimes in loud environments, My son can get very overwhelmed. He gets lost. So a hand on the shoulder just kind of helps, or he's now still young enough and short enough that the hand on the head, and I can just kind of steer him, and he's fine with that. He keeps going. So being able to slow down. Sometimes it can be as simple as, again, the folding of the hands. When things are engaged and when they're hot and some of our arguments are getting a little bit up there where it can be a big problem, watch the body language. Some of us, we get up there and we may have our hands clenched just out of maybe a sense of defense or something like that. We may have our hands tensed up, or we may be doing the one finger point, right? The wife finger, don't you dare. That brings up the situation. Sometimes just being able to fold the hands and bring them back in, and being able to be that thermostat, being able to be that control for what's going on, can really help. So by folding our hands, we just simply say, I'm not fighting. Let's bring this back down. Let's talk about this some more. All right. So we've got build, connect, guide. And then the fourth way we can use our hands to heal is to defend. And that's very different. This isn't an attack format, but this is a halt moment or a push away moment. Right? It's not to engage. It's not to lay hands on somebody at a rapid velocity. But it can just be a good sign that, hey, it's time to take a little bit of a chill. Stop what you're doing. And again, with kids, a lot of times they get so engaged with everything. And the more engaged we are and the more our brain is active, sometimes we don't pull those words out necessarily. And so the visual representation of a halt is a good way to bring that down. It can push away. It can pull things away. Sometimes we have to pull out of a situation. And again, anytime you're steering somebody, anytime you are engaging your hands to be with or to change what somebody else is doing, you want to be very cautious. Okay? But sometimes it's necessary. Defending hands can also cover. If somebody is scared, and kids, again, will be like this, but ultimately there are times, too, that adults are that way, where we get back into that very primal nature, and we're terrified. We are scared of what's going on. We're scared of what might be there. And one of the ways that we can bring healing to a relationship is to cover somebody else, right? To be able to put our hands around them, to put our arms around them and say, you know what, it's going to be okay. It's really chaotic right now, but I've got you. All right, so build, connect, guide, defend. And then the last way is to heal. And healing hands themselves just have something about it, that touch that comes in there. And again, more than just a connection. This is a healing motion. To be able to hold hands with somebody, to be able to wipe tears away. Not in a sense of don't cry. I'm a big fan of being able to let kids cry it out. I will fully admit that I'm one that gets very emotional. I'm a highly sensitive person. I didn't like it for the longest time, but now I've just kind of embraced it. All right. When that sappy story comes on a show, when the commercials come on at Christmas time with the kids, right? Everybody knows what I'm talking about. There's several organizations that do that. I'm one of the first ones to be, the tears are coming. So when we're wiping tears, be careful of what we're doing here, right? It's not a don't cry motion. It's a, you know what, go ahead and cry. I've got you covered for right now. And then to bandage things, to be able to bandage wounds up, sometimes figuratively, sometimes literally. When my son was young, I swear we have gone through 93 boxes of bandages over time, because every wound needs a Band-Aid, bandage. I'm trying to be careful. It needs a bandage whether we think so or not. And I tried to do the logical, dude, you're not bleeding, nothing's hanging off. You don't need a bandage. Right? Yes, I do, Dad. And I finally realized that, you know what? He doesn't need one, but he needs one. And if it costs me whatever it is, 17 cents to put this strip of plastic and an adhesive and everything else over this superficial wound to make him feel better, that's okay. And so we're able to bring healing in this way. Parents, just go ahead and invest in them. They're there. Buy them when they're on sale. Buy them in bulk. It's just going to happen. Thankfully, they do grow out of that. But then they get to the point sometimes where the wounds are too much for a little strip to cover. But you're still there for them. So that is the second part of 5, the different types of healing hands. Build, we can connect, we can guide, we can defend, and we can heal. Notice all of those things are positives. And when we're struggling in our relationships, if you're having problems connecting in with somebody and you're finding that there's a lack of, for lack of a better word, connection, a lack of solidification between you and this person, it can be the kids, it can be your spouse, your partner, your roommate. But if you find that there's a lot of disengagement going on, maybe you want to work at reconnecting, seeing what you can build together, seeing how you can connect, maybe guiding one another, defending one another, healing one another, whatever it takes to invest in that relationship and invest your hands into it to be able to help that person. So the challenge for today, and I always like to leave a little extra challenge, homework possibly some people could call it, but challenge. And I'd like to see how many ways, before you catch the next podcast, how many ways can you use your hands to heal a relationship? Okay? And see if you can maybe pick one from each of these different ways and build into that relationship. And maybe that relationship's not where it needs to be right now. Maybe you're listening to this because you and the spouse are having some major concerns and you're living in the same place, but not connected, but not working together. And maybe you're just trying to find ways to help with this. And you're like, you know what? I think I could do these things after this person deserves it. Be very careful. Dial that back and try to invest in that relationship first. Somebody's got to break the ice. And if you're listening to this, there's a good chance that you're the one motivated to do so. Okay? So give it a try. And I warn people, as always, if the hands are being used to attack, be careful in that relationship. If you are experiencing any kind of domestic violence, if the hands are not healing hands from your partner, spouse, whatever, get the National Domestic Violence Hotline going. And I'm going to I don't like doing this because I know you can hear the clicking, but this is, again, live and everything that I'm doing. So the National Domestic Violence Hotline is a great resource to be able to get help, and it's simply at thehotline.org. And I'm bringing up the number here, but it's a chance to, why did I never remember this? 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-SAFE or 7233. Hands are not meant to attack in any kind of relationship, whether it's child or spouse. So hopefully you have a chance to invest in the healing of that. I would love to hear success stories. I would love to hear how great things have gone when you have been able to put your hands into the relationship. So throw me a line at comments@breadoverstones.com and give me some successes. And if you want me to read them on the air, let me know. Or if it's okay to read them on the air, let me know, and I will do that. So that should wrap us up for today. Thank you once again for letting me into your lives and for doing the change in your own life. Have a great day. Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com for the music at the opening and closing of this show. The opening song was Carefree. The closing one was Cattails. They're both licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. http://creativecommons.org/licenses/by/3.0.
This show, its host, and its guests are here to provide accurate and helpful educational information. This is not a substitute for personal counseling, and it shouldn't be taken as legal, accounting, medical, or other professional advice.
If you need a professional, you should find one in your area.